Hello and a warm welcome to the studio. Sometimes it's really useful to be able to transfer a drawing or a photograph onto another surface without spending a lot of time on freehand drawing, which of course is a great skill to practice. Just drawing for its own sake is a wonderful thing to do. But there are times when maybe you've spent a lot of time on a drawing or a design and you want to transfer it perhaps onto a piece of lino for cutting or onto a canvas for painting, or you just want to go straight from your own photograph and maybe enlarge it to go on a canvas for painting. So that's what this video is going to be about, and I'm going to use the squaring up method. I'll show you what you're going to need if you want to practice this way. Here are the things I'm going to use. I've got a couple of erasers. One's just a normal, quite a hard eraser, and this one's a putty rubber, soft kneadable eraser. Ruler, a 2B pencil, the design that I want to transfer, and the surface I want to transfer it onto, a piece of lino or photograph, and a couple of photocopies of that in black and white, and the surface I'm going to transfer that onto, which is a canvas board. The photograph now, this is Margaret's lovely seascape, which I've printed out in colour. I have photocopied it in black and white as well. Taken a couple of photocopies that I can work on. And then what I did first of all was to check whether the ratio of the rectangle was the same as the ratio of the photograph that I was going to use. And what I've done in fact is I've cut a little bit off the sky, so I know I've made this rectangle a lot sort of longer and narrower, and I can tell just by looking at the two of them that they're not in the same proportion. This rectangle is much longer and narrower compared to this rectangle. So I've drawn a diagonal line through this rectangle. I'm going to put this photograph down in that bottom corner. Right now, do you see? There's a diagonal line taken through the photograph. It would be going off at a different angle to this diagonal line. It's not going to the corner of the canvas, and it's going off at a different angle. So that means that I have to do a little bit of adjustment to make sure this image fits on this canvas properly. See, there's two things I could do. I could move the corner to there and lose a bit off this side of the photograph, which I don't want to do because I really like this rock here. So I could bring it across like that and lose a bit off this side to try and get the diagonal coming, okay, like that. So it would mean that I'd have to lose that part of the photograph, which I find not very satisfying because it just has this little bit of rock just coming in from the right, and it just doesn't look right. So what I decided to do was move it up to there, and I'm going to add more onto the bottom. So here's one I prepared earlier where, okay, there we go, I line that up. That's lined up with the side of the canvas. The corners line up to the diagonal. There we are. And I've added some more rock down at the bottom there. See, look, I've just drawn this line. I've just imagined more of this rock added onto the bottom, and I'm happier with that composition. I can see on the edge of the photograph that there's something here. It might be like a little shelf on the cliffs with some vegetation on it, or maybe just another rock, I don't know. but I quite like the composition having just this tiny little strip of sky and then lots of water and rocks, because it makes me feel like I'm really looking down from the top of the cliff down into the water. That's the important part of the composition for me. So to prepare the photograph, what I want to do is draw that diagonal into the photograph. So I'm not doing measured squares, but I'm dividing the rectangles up into halves, quarters, and as many times as I need to divide it. So first of all, I'm taking the diagonals corner to corner, which finds the centre spot. Okay, I'll do the same on the canvas. And now that I've found the centre of the canvas, I can measure that, which is 8 inches. Put a little mark at 8 inches at the bottom. And just to be sure, one at the top as well, so that I line everything up nice and perpendicular. This is worth taking your time over. I have seen this done with kind of hand-drawn random grid on it, and it doesn't really work very well because you get squares of all slightly different sizes. You do want it to be as consistent as you can make it. Otherwise there's not a lot of point. Might as well just draw it freehand, which of course you can do. And a very good exercise that would be too. But as I say, you might want to just be getting on with your painting and not want to spend a lot of time on the drawing. It's easy once you get to doing these diagonals. You don't have to do any more numbers at all, because all you have to do, when you've got these points marked, is join them up. And so whatever I'm doing on the canvas, I'm going to do exactly the same on the photograph. That might be enough. Let's see what it's like when I've marked the photograph up as well. What's that measurement? That's 5 3/8 inches. 5 3/8. 5 3/8. Join them up. That's just a little tiny bit over 4. Over 4. It's about 4 1/16. There we go. Okay. Next diagonal was this one. Perhaps I might get on better with a shorter ruler. That's better. diagonals drawn in. These uprights, 2 crosses lined up. Oh, I can't see that one. Where's that? It's there. Right. And where's that one? It's hard to see. Oh, there we are. I got it. Okay. So now I need to decide whether, do I need to do any more subdivision? Maybe. I could take that horizontal and that one. And of course doing the same on the canvas. Yeah. Right, so I'm using a 2B pencil, which is soft but not too soft. What I want to make sure is I don't get too much graphite on here, because it's going to get all messy when I erase the bits that I don't want to be there. But I do want to be able to see what I've drawn. And if you were doing this onto watercolour paper, for example, I would advise a 2B pencil, or 3B perhaps, would be really good, because you can get enough of a mark for it to be well visible, but it means that you can erase it using the putty rubber without damaging the surface of the paper if you need to erase the guidelines once you've got your drawing in. For the canvas, of course, I can use a hard eraser to rub out any marks. Doesn't matter if it all gets a bit grubby, because it's going to get covered in paint anyway. Right, so now I can look at this section, and there's the edge of that furthest away bit of sea, and there's the top of the land. And looking at that line there, these two lines sort of come each side of sort of the halfway point, so they're going to be something like that. You sort of have to get used to seeing a measurement like that and scaling it up. Very often I've noticed when people are trying to enlarge by this, they'll find a point like that, and then they'll draw the next point the same distance away as it is on the photograph. So it might be, you might find that you need to subdivide. If I subdivide that even more, it might make it clearer where the edge of the sea is going to need to come through there, and then the land up there. See, that helps a little bit to get that distance spot on. Okay, and then got a bit of a rocky outcrop there, just a shoulder. Next down here. So have I got everything in that section? I'm going to try really and just work section by section rather than going through into the next one in too much of a hurry. Right, let's have a look at this section next. So this section is going to go here. Again, I might subdivide that just to get a better look at where the shapes come and go. Oops, there. There, that's, so this line comes through the intersection there, starts dropping away a little bit, and this shoulder, there's a tiny little bit of sea there, and then this shoulder starts to hide the land that's beyond it. It comes up, it's hard to see actually, but I can see that's the edge of this nearer shoulder, sort of middle distance area. So that comes very conveniently right on that cross point. And between there and there, it's leaving just above the halfway point of this line. That's a nice, interesting section of rock. There's this corner, and that section of rock is just above halfway between there and there. There and there, it's above halfway in this section. Okay, and the next one, to fold it along that line and I can see where the edge of my section is. That's better. Some people there, little shapes on the horizon. Change of colour just here. Not going to put every single detail in, but I just want to put a few interesting changes in colour and texture that there are there. And then the last one. That comes out. So that's halfway. That's halfway. It's a little bit above halfway, and that's somewhat below halfway, approximately. Yeah. Top section. Next section down. That's what's so good about having a photocopy to work with, because you can bend it around and do all sorts of things with it to make it easier to see what you're doing. Right, I'm not subdividing these, but you could if you wanted to. Keep getting distracted by what's in the next square. kind of makes me stop thinking about what these shapes are, just looking at the shapes themselves. Here's another thing you can do to stop yourself thinking about what shapes are. Turn your work upside down. That really makes you think in abstract. Oh, this is the one, isn't it? Have a little peek to see where that. Oh, I see what was going on there. This makes me change my mind about the position of this edge. Okay. Section. Let's put in this edge here. So between there and there, that's halfway. This edge, so it's halfway. This edge is just to that side of halfway. Big shadow, big dark shadow here. Okay. This bottom one is where I've invented some extra rock there. Okay, and then this one, again some more invented rock. I'm having to be careful not to get sidetracked by this line at the edge of the photocopy. And then that's just actually foam texture in there. Right, let's turn it around and see what we've got. It didn't require too much thinking about what was what and the proportions. And what I'm going to do now is to use the eraser to get rid of most of the grid so we can actually see the drawing a bit better. Look at that, the putty rubber is actually doing a much better job picking up the graphite. Soft pencil, soft eraser. I should have known that. That's why there's all smudgy over here, it's because I used the hard eraser. Mistake. Let's try inking it in with a permanent pen. Now, I have to confess to having an ulterior motive to showing you this process, and it's because I'm planning an activity for you for during August when I'm not sending any videos out. Last week, you might remember, I showed you some pieces of artwork that I've been saving for years, which were part of a project we did in class collaboratively, where each person was given a section of a painting and recreated it in their own way in different mediums, and then all the pieces were put back together and we had an enlarged version of the artwork that we were working from. And I thought that would be really nice to do this summer, so I'm looking for people who are interested to let me know, and then I can split up a photograph relating to something that we've been doing over the last few weeks and post it out to you with the measurements that you need to use to create your own version of your section, and then I would ask you to post it back to me when it's complete. There'll only be small ones, these, so we won't be using a lot of postage and packing. When I get all the pieces back, I'll reassemble them into the whole image and photograph it and send it out to you. Then I'll have the physical artwork, which one day maybe I'll be able to find somewhere to display as well. That'd be great, wouldn't it, to see it when we all get back together. So here's a look at a couple of examples of these artworks that we've made in the past.